What you're about to hear is a powerful, inspirational story that has spread across the internet in many forms. It's a modern parable about a man who has everything, only to lose it all in a moment of public humiliation. Picture this: a powerful billionaire, used to getting anything he wants, has his card declined at a busy gas station. Laughed at, filmed, and totally alone, his entire world, built on wealth and power, is about to come crashing down. That's because two little twin sisters, with nothing but a jar of coins and hearts of gold, are about to do something unthinkable, proving that the smallest act of kindness can be the most powerful investment of all. You'll want to stick around to see how their simple gift changes a billionaire's life forever. The cashier's voice, dripping with contempt, cuts through the air-conditioned quiet of the gas station store. It's one single word, sharp and loud, meant to embarrass. Declined. CTA. Before we get into what happened next in this incredible story of how shame turned into a life-changing moment, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. You won't want to miss the powerful stories of kindness we share here every week. Section 1, The Man Who Had Everything. Our story starts not at the gas station, but miles away, in a world of polished chrome, silent elevators, and whisper-quiet respect. This was the world of Alexander Mitchell. At 42 years old, Alexander wasn't just a businessman, he was the guy who built a global technology empire. His net worth was so massive, people didn't count it, they just guessed at the shifting ocean of billions that protected him from the daily hassles of life. Alexander lived in a penthouse that scraped the clouds, a palace of glass and steel where the city below looked like a circuit board he owned. His life was just a series of smooth transactions. Doors opened for him. Calls were always taken. The word no. It was a foreign word he almost never heard. He wore suits that whispered their expense and a watch that was worth more than most family homes. But an empire, Alexander was learning, can be its own kind of prison. The weight of thousands of employees, of market expectations, of the constant pressure to be number one, was starting to suffocate him. He'd become a ghost in his own life. The last straw came 3 weeks earlier, a betrayal in his own boardroom so deep it shattered his trust in the world he'd built. So, he did something no one saw coming. He vanished. He didn't take a leave of absence. He simply walked out of his office, got into his car, a custom-built supercar that looked more like a spaceship, and just drove. He headed south, away from the city, into the sun-baked heart of rural Texas. He was running, not from his enemies, but from the golden cage he had so carefully built for himself. And that's how he found himself on Route 65, the asphalt shimmering in the midday heat. The dashboard flashed a warning, fuel critical. He was mortal after all. He needed gas. He pulled into a small, dusty Shell station that looked like a forgotten relic. Stepping out of his car felt like stepping onto another planet. His expensive leather shoes crunched on the gravel. He could smell the gasoline, hot asphalt, and the slow, unhurried rhythm of a life he didn't recognize. He felt eyes on him immediately. A trucker filling his rig, a family piling out of a minivan. They weren't looking at him with awe, but with simple curiosity. He was a peacock in a chicken coop. He walked into the convenience store, a little bell jingling his arrival. The AC was a relief, but the aisles were narrow and cluttered. He grabbed a bottle of imported water out of habit and stood in line behind a woman paying for a lottery ticket with wrinkled dollar bills. He was getting impatient. The slow pace, the friendly chat between the woman and the cashier, it all grated on him. In his world, efficiency was everything. This was not that. When it was finally his turn, he put the water on the counter and looked past the cashier, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Brenda. 50 on pump 3, he said, his tone clipped. He didn't make eye contact. To him, Brenda wasn't a person, she was just part of the transaction. Brenda chewed her gum, her eyes lingering on his watch. A little smirk played on her lips. She'd seen his type. All flash. That'll be $53.50. Alexander pulled a sleek, black metal card from his wallet. It was an exclusive piece of titanium with a credit limit that was basically theoretical. He slid it across the counter. Brenda took it, deliberately slow, and ran it through the machine. A pause. A beep. And then came the word that would blow up Alexander Mitchell's world. A word he hadn't heard since he was a teenager with an empty bank account. Declined. Brenda didn't just say it, she announced it. It was a proclamation, loud enough for the trucker who had just walked in to hear. Loud enough for everyone to turn and stare. Alexander froze. It had to be a mistake. A glitch in her ancient machine. Run it again, he commanded, his voice sharp. Brenda rolled her eyes, a tiny act of defiance that infuriated him. She ran it again. The machine beeped, just as loud. Declined, she repeated, enjoying it. You got another card? The blood rushed to Alexander's face. Humiliation, a foreign feeling, pricked at his skin. He could feel their stares. He, Alexander Mitchell, a man who could buy this whole town, was being treated like a bum. Section 2, the weight of judgment. Of course, I have another card, Alexander snapped, his voice tight with anger and a hint of panic. He fumbled in his wallet, his fingers suddenly clumsy. He pulled out a platinum business card and slapped it on the counter. Brenda's smirk widened. She swiped it. The machine delivered the same punishing beep. Declined, she almost sang. The trucker by the door let out a low chuckle. Seriously, the trucker rumbled. That fancy car out there must be a rental. The comment hit Alexander like a punch. He felt their eyes on him, not just looking, but judging. A mother pulled her son a little closer, as if financial failure was contagious. A couple of teenagers, who had been debating which chips to buy, stopped, pulled out their phones, and started filming. Now they weren't just staring, they were recording, ready to upload his worst moment for the world to laugh at. Cold, sharp panic set in. This wasn't possible. He pulled out his final card, the ace in the hole. The mythical, invitation-only Centurion card, a black piece of titanium rumored to have no limit. He held it out, his hand shaking slightly. Try this, he whispered. Brenda's feigned boredom was gone, replaced by real curiosity. She'd heard of these but had never seen one. She ran it. The store went silent. A long, painful beep. Declined. Laughter rippled through the small audience. The teenagers were now openly giggling, zooming in on Alexander's face. The mother whispered something to her child, who pointed at Alexander and laughed. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside, Brenda said, her tone final. Other customers are waiting. The floor felt like it was dropping out from under him. His wealth, his power, his identity, it all vanished under the harsh fluorescent lights. He was no longer Alexander Mitchell, tech titan. He was just a man who couldn't pay for gas. A fraud. A joke. The shame was suffocating. He knew why this was happening, the partner who had frozen his assets in a corporate coup, but that didn't stop the sting. He felt completely and utterly alone. And then, through the haze of shame and laughter, two small voices cut through the noise. Excuse me, mister. He barely heard it at first, just staring at the floor, wishing it would swallow him whole. We can pay for him. The words were spoken in unison, clear and high-pitched. The laughter in the store died. Alexander looked up. Standing before him were two of the most beautiful children he had ever seen. They were identical twin girls, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with their hair in matching colorful braids. They were small, but they stood straight and serious. One of them held a large glass jar, the kind for canning peaches. It was full of coins, quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, with a few folded dollar bills mixed in. Girls. Grace. Hope. Get back here, a woman's voice called from the back of the line, her face flushed with embarrassment. But the twins didn't move. Their wide, brown eyes were fixed on Alexander. The one holding the jar, Grace, stepped forward and put the heavy container on the counter with a clink. "We have $15.60, she announced to Brenda, her voice steady. "Our grandma always said that when someone needs help, and you can help, you just do. Even if it's just a little bit." Her sister, Hope, nodded, her gaze never leaving Alexander's face. She wasn't looking at a failed billionaire, she was looking at a person who was hurting. The entire store was frozen. The trucker stared, his mouth hanging open. The teenagers lowered their phones, a flicker of shame on their faces. Brenda looked from the jar of coins to the two little girls, her smirk completely gone. Alexander stared at the jar. It was their entire fortune, offered to him, a complete stranger, without hesitation. For weeks, he'd been dealing with betrayal and greed. Men who called him a friend had plotted his ruin. And here, in this forgotten place, two little girls with nothing were offering him everything they had. Something inside him just broke. That hard, cynical shell he'd spent decades building around his heart. It cracked. A single, hot tear rolled down his cheek. He didn't bother wiping it away. He knelt, slowly, until he was at eye level with the twins. The world-famous billionaire was on his knees in a dusty gas station, brought there by an act of kindness so pure it felt like a miracle. "Why?" he whispered, his voice choked. "Why would you do this for me?" Grace shrugged, a simple gesture that held a world of wisdom. "Because you looked sad," she said. "And our mom says there's enough sad in the world already." In the silence that followed, a strange thing happened. Brenda, still looking stunned, decided to try the black card one last time. Maybe it was a reflex, or maybe she was moved by the scene. She slid it into the reader. This time, there was a different beep. A short, cheerful chime. A green light flashed. Approved. The sudden reversal was almost as shocking as the failure. Alexander would later find out the security hold on his accounts had been lifted by his bank's fraud department just moments before. It was a total coincidence, a fluke of technology. But in that moment, it felt like a sign. The tension in the store broke. Alexander stood up and paid for his gas. He then turned to the two girls, who were now beside their mother, Sarah, who was trying to apologize and pull them away. "Please," Alexander said, holding up a hand. His voice was different now, the arrogant edge was gone. "Don't apologize. Your daughters, what they did." He looked at the jar of coins. "I can't take your money. But I will never forget what you offered." He pulled out the few $100s he had and tried to give it to Sarah. She refused. "No, sir. They just wanted to help." Alexander understood. He looked at the girls. "My name is Alexander," he said softly. "What are your names?" "I'm Grace, and this is Hope," the braver twin said proudly. "Grace and Hope," Alexander repeated, the words feeling like a revelation. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in years. "I can't think of better names." He managed to get Sarah's name and phone number, promising only to send a proper thank you. As he walked out, the other patrons watched him again, but this time, the judgment was gone. The next morning, back in a luxury hotel, Alexander didn't call his lawyers. That all seemed trivial now. Instead, he made a different call. He asked an investigator to get the real story on Sarah, Grace, and Hope. What he learned was a story of quiet struggle and incredible dignity. Sarah was a single mother. The girl's father, a soldier, had passed away 2 years ago. She worked 2 low-wage jobs to keep their small, rented house and was drowning in medical debt. The $15.60 in that jar was money the girls had been saving for over a year to go to a state fair. It was their dream fund. Reading the report, Alexander saw things clearly. For years, his charity had been about big numbers and his name on buildings. It wasn't about people. It wasn't about grace and hope. He knew what he had to do. 2 days later, a simple black car pulled up to their house. Alexander knocked on the door, his heart pounding. Sarah opened it, her eyes wide with shock. Grace and Hope peeked out from behind her, their faces breaking into huge grins. "Mr. Alexander," they yelled. He spent the next hour in their living room, drinking lemonade Grace had proudly poured. He asked about their dreams. Grace wanted to be a teacher, Hope a doctor. Finally, he placed a folder on the coffee table. "Sarah," he began gently. "Your daughters taught me what true wealth is. It isn't what's in your bank account, it's what's in your heart. And I want to honor that." With trembling hands, Sarah opened the folder. Inside was the deed to the house, in her name. Paid in full. Under that was a letter confirming all her debts had been settled. Gone. Tears streamed down her face. But he wasn't done. "I also set up a trust for Grace and Hope." He handed her another document. The number on it made her gasp. It was a multi-million-dollar fund to pay for their education, from tutors to any university in the world. It would ensure they could follow their dreams without ever worrying about money. "And for you, Sarah," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've spoken to the top nursing school in the state. They're expecting you. Tuition, living expenses, everything is covered. All you have to do is focus on becoming the great nurse I know you'll be." Sarah was openly weeping now. But Alexander's kindness didn't stop there. He remembered the trucker who had laughed. He found the man, whose name was Hank, an independent driver dreaming of owning his own fleet. A week later, Hank got a call. An anonymous benefactor had bought him a brand new rig and secured him a multi-year contract with one of Alexander's companies. Then there was Brenda, the cashier. Alexander bought the rundown Shell station, renovated it, and made Brenda the general manager with a huge raise and a share of the profits. Within this story, the news of what happened got out. Not the clip of his humiliation, but the real story. The story of the billionaire and the 2 girls who changed his life. Alexander gave one interview to a small local paper. "For 20 years, I thought I was rich," he said, the photo showing him laughing with Grace and Hope. "I was a billionaire but spiritually bankrupt. On the worst day of my life, 2 little girls with $15.60 showed me they were infinitely richer than I was. They reminded me that kindness is the only currency that truly matters." Conclusion and CTA, in the story, Alexander Mitchell went on to restructure his entire philanthropic foundation. He diverted billions into a new initiative called the Grace and Hope Fund, a global foundation dedicated to celebrating small, everyday acts of kindness. So our story comes full circle, right back to that gas station. But it's no longer a place of shame. It's a place of hope. A place that proves you don't have to be a billionaire to change the world. Sometimes, all it takes is the courage to see someone in pain and offer them everything you have, even if it's just a handful of coins in a glass jar. Because true wealth isn't measured by what you accumulate. It's measured by what you give away. What did you think of this incredible story? Let us know in the comments below what part moved you the most. And if you believe in the power of kindness, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe for more stories that prove the best parts of humanity are still out there. Thanks for watching.